Hello once again, everybody. Welcome into a brand new episode of the Hyrule Huddle podcast from HyruleHuddle.com. I'm Kevin McGuire. Josh Webb is here too, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's been a little more than a week and a half, 2 weeks or whatever it's been now since our last podcast, and folks, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about some sports. We're going to talk about some gaming. Going to throw in some pop culture stuff, of course. And without further ado, let's say hello, Josh. How's it going today?
It's going great, man. I am not podcasting from my usual position, so if people hear me rustling around or moving and whatnot, I just had a back procedure. They are trying to kill the nerves, all the nerves in my back, to hopefully alleviate some of the pain, because I take a boatload of medication for it right now, and I don't really want to. So I am doing this kind of like lounging in a bed, propped up. So, yeah, if you guys hear movement, I do apologize, but what can you really do after a back surgery, right?
Hey, man.
You're supposed to stay in bed.
That's what the doctors order, right? But you are a trooper, you are dedicated, and I know you've got some enthusiasm for some of the things we're going to be talking about in this episode, right?
I have a lot of enthusiasm for some of these things we're going to be talking about. The question is where to start, and I think you have listed here for us a fine place to start, given the events of this past weekend, which were the AFC and NFC championship games, which were about as much fun to watch as both college football playoff semifinals. So, the Super Bowl matchup has been set, right? We've got the Patriots, we've got the Falcons. The Patriots, habitual offenders of the Super Bowl landscape, and the Falcons, who've not been there since Michael Vick was at quarterback. Falcons enter into the game with the nation's highest scoring offense. However, for all the comparisons that they get to turf, the greatest show on turf, this team gives up a crap ton of points, almost as many as they score. Whereas the Turf Show times, yeah, this has been working there a little bit too long.
Cross promotion at its finest, right here.
Whereas the greatest show on turf actually held their opponents to half. I think they scored 520-some points, but only gave up 246. The Falcons have scored something like 546 points, but have given up like 520. So they may be scoring a lot, but they're very easily scored upon. This is an interesting matchup. Matt Ryan finally delivered on some of the promise that the Falcons had been hoping for. Of course, the news that Kyle Shanahan is likely going to be the next head coach in San Francisco might not do them any favors, as the Patriots seem to have avoided entirely their staff being picked apart, even though, as is always the case with the Patriots, at least two assistants are propped up for head coaching positions on Black Friday.
It sure seems like it. I'm kind of curious if either of these teams is just going to take the Nick Saban route and kind of force their coordinator out the door so they can focus on their next job instead of the big championship game ahead of us. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But you made some interesting points about this matchup. Patriots. Obviously, this is a franchise that has been here time and time again. They're playing in their, ninth Super Bowl or something like that? I don't even know how many they're up to at this point, but it's a lot of Super Bowls. And
they're at least 6 with Brady. They're at least 6 with Brady. Now it's 7. This is Brady's 7th. And that doesn't count the one where they got stomped by the Packers, and then right. I think they were in one more before that.
Yeah, there was one more in the 80s where they got stomped by the Bears. Right,
that's correct. The 85
right.
Bears.
Yeah.
That is correct. So, yeah, this would be their 9th Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an incredible run, and certainly if the Patriots haven't already entered the conversation as one of the all-time great franchises, they're certainly deserving of it right now. Regardless of how they got there, there have been some scandals along the way. There's no question about that. But still, bottom the top. This is a.
Can we talk about though? Is that really fair to do to Tom Brady? Is that really fair to Tom Brady? Because I don't see anybody else going back trying to strip titles from baseball teams in the 90s.
No, that's true. I don't know if it is. I think that whole Deflategate thing I thought was kind of silly, but I do feel if the league feels like the integrity of the game is at compromise, I think they have to do something. And regardless of who is behind it, whether Tom Brady was 100% guilty of everything, that's up to you to decide, I guess. But obviously, I think there's been so much good that this franchise has done on the field that you cannot take a lot away from what Tom Brady and Bill Belichick have done. So basically what I'm saying is I think what we've seen with the Patriots, with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick over so many years at this point, this is a combo that's going to go down in history in the NFL, certainly, as one of the best combos that we may have ever seen. So I don't think I don't know if we can take too much away from it in the grand scheme of things. And I think that ultimately, when we look back on this years and years from now, that's ultimately what's going to be remembered the most. I think it's going to be the championship. So I honestly, I may not be a fan of them, but I have to respect what they've been doing.
Yeah, it's kind of hard not to, man. I mean, look, this is a team that I'm not saying I'm a Patriots fan, but when they played the Giants in the Super Bowl and had the undefeated season, I wanted them to finish it. I felt saddened by the fact that they didn't finish it. I'm sure that eats at Tom Brady every day. And I think that loss has only made him better. Like, if he wasn't pissed off Tom Brady before, that loss sent him into nuclear mode. And then the loss after just cemented, like, Eli Manning, for whatever reason, has his number. And it seems odd that no matter how you hack it, get it? Hack it. No matter how you hack it, Tom Brady's legacy is going to be tied to both Mannings.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's
There's
crazy
no question
to me.
about that. Yeah, it's really
me.
fascinating. I mean, the whole Manning legacy in itself is something that's going to be remembered for years. But I think when you're absolutely right. When you look at Tom Brady, you think of all the games against Peyton Manning, and then the 2 Super Bowls against Eli Manning. That is something that's just you can't script it.
No, I don't even know that that's happened. I don't even know that that's ever happened in the NFL. That one dude has habitually gone up against a pair of brothers that have been his kryptonite at times. I don't want to say like Tom Brady's had to overcome or anything, because I don't think a dude with 4 Super Bowl rings has had to overcome. No. But I mean, this guy's certainly gone up against the best the league's had to offer time and time again. I mean, even still mixed in there ought to also be Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, he had to get past Ben Roethlisberger several times in the AFC Championship game with the Steelers. So it's going to be an interesting Super Bowl. I'm curious who you think's going to win.
As we sit here right now, I think the Patriots are going to win, but we have a whole extra week to get really ramped up for that game, so we can talk about it a little bit more next week. But I have a feeling the Patriots are going to edge out the Falcons. I think the Falcons are going to give them a good run. I think the Falcons team is really good. Matt Ryan might be the MVP of the league this year, arguably. He's got one of the best wide receivers in Julio Jones, and the Falcons can also run the ball when they need it. I think this is a team that can give the Patriots a good run. I don't know if it's a team that's going to expose the Patriots or anything like that, but if it gets into a little bit of a shootout, I'd like to see what Matt Ryan can do. And I think that.
Do you want to see like a Rose Bowl style Super Bowl?
I would be perfectly fine with that. I would be perfectly fine with
52-49, some Gostowski wins it on the last, because that's the Patriot way, right? You win on the last minute field goal.
Yeah. Hey, if we get a game that's half as exciting as that Rose Bowl, I will be perfectly fine.
I legit think this game will be exciting for a half, maybe, but I have this feeling that Matt Ryan is going to first-time quarterbacks on the stage of the Super Bowl typically do not do well.
Unless you're Tom Brady. And Matt Ryan's really good.
Matt Ryan's very good, but he's had his ails. He had to lose. Yeah. for every playoff win that he's had to get, that he's been able to get, he's had to lose that same game previously. He had to lose in an AFC champion or in an NFC championship once before, getting completely humiliated. And I look at Cam Newton, and we'll move on after this because there's still no point in wasting all our time talking about the Super Bowl 2 weeks out of this. But I look at Cam Newton and I see the type of game that he had coming off a team with a similar type of, I don't know, panache, flair, play calling. The Panthers supposedly had it all, and just brutal defense by the Patriots brutal defense by Denver was able to break that down. Right. And the Patriots, for all the offense that they put up, people keep quietly forgetting that this is a really good defensive team.
It is.
Like a really good defensive team. So I think it will be interesting. I think the Patriots will win this one, but I'm subject to change.
Fair enough. We'll reevaluate a week from now or so, and really kind of ramp up, kind of like a little bit of a Super Bowl preview, because there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about when we talk about this game, and certainly we can look forward to commercials and stuff like that. We can have some fun talking about the Super Bowl, I think, next week.
Can we look forward to commercials? Can we, though? Because they've been so disappointing for the last 4 or 5 years.
That's a very fair point, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit more next week too. But I would agree with that. Yeah, I still look forward to them in hopes that maybe this is going to be a year that the commercials are revived a little bit in overall quality, because it feels like it's been a long time.
It has been. But enough with the dang Super Bowl. We quietly had a little bit of other sports-related news this week, didn't we?
Yes. One other sports topic we're going to throw in here, and this is kind of relatively new. A legend in the sports business, the sports broadcasting industry, is retiring, and I think going to really find his calling with his next job. Brent Musburger stepping down. Now, we've talked about Brent Musburger before, and Josh, I don't know about you, but the timing of the Brent Musburger retirement seems kind of fishy to me. And I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but we had this conversation about his comments about Joe Mixon during the Sugar Bowl. And now Musburger is retiring at the end of January with a month and a half left of college basketball still to go. Seems kind of weird to me.
It does seem kind of weird to me. But at the same time, Brent's 77. So maybe Brent looked at it like this. He was going to be suspended for a little. And he's like, you know what, man? This is just the perfect time to get out. It's just the perfect time to go. For me. And I don't know if you saw Dave Pardum's tweet, but naturally and so logically, guess what Brent Musburger is doing following his career as a sportscaster?
Yes, he is opening up some kind of gambling service. Sports
he and his family are opening up a sports handicapping. Nobody can tell all of our suspicions that Brent Musburger got pissed because covers or overs or unders were blown, they have all come true. They have totally all come true.
It's fantastic, though. The guy's 77 years old, and he's getting to do something like this. That's great for him.
And look at this, dude. I don't care if people want to gamble on sports. Look, I would say that gambling itself can be very, very dangerous, and only a fool wouldn't know that. One of my buddies is a professional gambler. He has done very, very well for himself. As a matter of fact, he's my childhood best friend. He's on the World Poker Tour, plays. He hits me up frequently and is like, hey, what should I drop 5,000 on today in the world of sports? Yeah. No, this guy's a professional gambler, and got nothing against it. But even he knows that, there's some bets you make and some bets you don't. So, Brent Musburger always seems to have gambled responsibly. We've never heard any stories about him. He's not really had too many scandals other than the Joe Mixon announcement. So I guess this sort of begs the question, on a Mount Rushmore of sports announcers, which you have here and you were talking about yesterday on Twitter, Where does Musburger fit, and does he make your Mount Rushmore? Who is your Mount Rushmore of sports announcers?
And I know I tweeted my Mount Rushmore last night, and I'm trying to think back. Did I put Musburger on there? I think I may have. But I will say...
I think you did. You had Howard Cosell. I think you
Howard
had
Cosell,
John Madden.
Mm-hmm. John Madden.
And Al Michaels. Al Michaels was the last one.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I had Al Michaels. So, I feel pretty comfortable with that if I'm doing a top four. I know you had another name that is well worth mentioning.
I think you had Vin Scully.
That's right. I had Vin Scully instead of Al Michaels.
Yes.
I had Howard Cosell, Brent Musburger, Vin Scully, and I put in John Madden.
Yes. And I think that I said I would have put Keith Jackson in ahead of one of your guys.
And honestly, I would have no problem with that. I'm willing to entertain that as an argument, but I think, like I said, if I'm going with my top four, that's probably where I'm going.
See, my top...
Keith Jackson.
Yeah, see... my buddy Sean Face tweeted, he's going to miss hearing Brent with that touchdown Trojans that you got to hear this past Rose Bowl.
Yeah,
didn't hurt me. Didn't hurt me at all. I think getting back to the original point though, I think my Mount Rushmore would definitely have Vin Scully on it. You can't come from California and not consider Vin Scully to be, well, frankly, just a gift.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I don't know that I would have John Madden on mine. I wouldn't, because most everything Madden said to me was so damn incoherent that it's sort of like having Larry Merchant. I suppose you can, but I think they were both drunk for most of their careers. So I don't really know what either one was saying, but I would have to have Howard Cosell on there. I think that's common sense. Vin Scully. I'd probably put Keith Jackson. And then the last spot would probably be a toss-up between either Al Michaels or, why am I forgetting his name? San Francisco Giants announcer. Does a whole bunch of other things, though, too. Calls all that crap in the Bay Area.
I think I know who you're talking about, but I can't picture his name. Did he used to do national baseball for ESPN?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, what was it? With Joe Morgan? John something? John Miller?
John Miller, that's exactly who it is. Sorry. I know, I love him so much that I forgot his name and would put him on my Mount Rushmore. But then again, if you were to ask 95% of the people who's on Mount Rushmore, they couldn't tell you all four. So I'm okay with that.
I will say, if I were to take one name off, it might be John Madden in place of maybe Keith Jackson. I think John Madden. I think a lot of people remember him more in his later years as an announcer, but an analyst alongside an aging Pat Summerall, and eventually making his way into the Monday Night booth. But I think at his highest, I think forget the video game aside of this. I think at his height of his in the prime of his career, I think he was probably pretty spot on. So, maybe my memory has been faded a little bit. I don't know, but I think, like I said, I think what he did for his role in the booth, I think was kind of innovative enough in itself. So I thought he brought a kind of a coach's element to it. Obviously with all the stuff he did with the coach's pen on the screen and everything. I think that was probably something that he kind of made his own thing, and a lot of people were inspired by that, and it's kind of grown from that. So I think that's why I would throw him into my Mount Rushmore if I'm just throwing one together.
No doubt, man. He's very much got that CNN war room thing going on. They gave him all the advanced technology before advanced technology in sports, and electronic boards and this and that were the thing. It's going to be extremely. Still one of my favorite moments is when an ESPN anchor of some sort is trying to tap on the damn thing and get it to move over into the box. He's like, I'm going to go ahead, when they're picking their winners of playoff games, they're like, I'm going to take the Trojans, and then they tap it and they're trying to move it over, and it's like, hold on, wait a minute, just let me hear. Okay, all right, you do it. That never gets old to me. I don't know why. It's like watching people that don't know how to use technology.
And I'm not saying this guy is anywhere close to being on that same level, but I think a lot of things that John Gruden does now, I think are the kind of things that John Madden was doing or would have been doing if given that opportunity. I think he's kind of like this generation's John Madden in a sense.
Absolutely. I was thinking that as you said this too. I was thinking you look at all those calls that John Madden made, and when he was drawn on the board, the first thing my mind went to actually was like, he sort of laid the groundwork for what Gruden does now. Like, Gruden has taken over that. And that's why I think maybe Gruden hasn't been so key to return to coaching, is he's looking at this like, shit, maybe EA drops John Madden and starts naming it John Gruden. You know, Gruden NFL
You know what?
football.
That's not actually a terrible idea, because there's going to be a point in time where the gaming fan base doesn't really have any connection to John Madden other than the video game, if we haven't already reached that point for the majority of the gaming consumer base. So rebranding it as John Gruden might be a little bit of a risky move, but I think it's one that could work. Hello? Josh, you there?
Sorry, I put myself on mute. What I was saying is,
okay.
I was saying that's actually a fabulous idea, and what we should do is get on top of what's that word there? Oh yeah, copywriting it.
Can we do that?
I don't know. Can we? Can we
It's not
copyright John Gruden football?
We can probably apply for it. I don't know if it'll be approved though, because we don't really have the rights to his likeness or his name. But maybe we can make a phone call and say, "Hey, we got a great idea, Mr. Gruden."
What if I change my name to John? You change one of your names to Gruden, and then we can say it's John and Gruden's football.
I think we might be reaching over bounds a little too far, but that's all right.
Probably.
So, I don't know if you're a huge fan of, I don't know what you do with PC gaming, but one of the big games that's out there or has been out there is League of Legends. So I don't know if that's something that you've ever been interested in. Have you ever dabbled in that? Have you ever watched anyone play that? What's your experience with League of Legends?
I have, I have my former best friend Bill, not that we fell apart for any reason as much as life just sort of took us in two different directions. He's always talking about League of Legends online. It seems like something my roommate would play, but he doesn't. More so than League of Legends, I'm probably a bit more familiar with Defense of the Ancients, which is very similar to League of Legends, these are all MOBAs, as I understand, right? Multiplayer online battle arenas. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So concept's generally the same. You have a team of people. Your object is to wipe out the other teams, and you do so in an online battle arena fashion. And you build up your characters with different attributes and points that you can award here and there to make them stronger in spell casting or whatever. Why I know all this stuff is really beyond me. But obviously I play board games.
Yeah.
But I've never played it. But I hear in your neck of the woods they're doing something pretty cool with it, right?
Yes, and I will say this is not something I've ever dabbled in myself, but I have been aware of it. And, like you said, in my neck of the woods here in Pennsylvania, on the Big Ten Network, the Big Ten Network is going to be broadcasting a full season's worth of esports competition featuring League of Legends. Now, this is something that they've done before. This is something that I believe they introduced it last year, I want to say. And they kind of go from a couple of Big Ten campuses like Ohio State or Michigan. I'm just naming them off the top of my head. And they have these actual esports competitions between these schools that are forming teams to compete in these games, like League of Legends, and they're going head to head. And the esports industry is really kind of evolving and emerging and growing. And the fact that the Big Ten Network is putting aside airtime over the summer to show something like this, I think it might be a sign of where we're heading here. Now, we've seen ESPN broadcast esports competitions. They've thrown it on ESPN too. I'm not sure off the top of my head if Fox Sports 1 has dabbled in this just yet, but I would imagine at some point they will. But the Big Ten Network's going all in, and they're getting almost everybody in their conference involved in it. All but 2 schools out of the 14-team Big Ten are going to be competing in this over the summer. So,
which are the 2 that sat out?
The 2 that are not participating in it, and I don't exactly know what the reasons are Nebraska and Penn State. So everybody else is in. Ohio State, Michigan.
So your boys are sitting it out for some reason.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know what the reason is. I don't know if they just don't have a team. I don't know if they're not interested. I have to imagine that there are a few students at the campuses of Nebraska and Penn State that are playing League of Legends. I'm willing to take a shot at it.
I would place a significant amount of money on the fact that there are at least 2 students, and I am not a bettor.
I would guess.
Yeah, I am not a bettor, but I would bet on that.
Yeah, I would think that that's a pretty safe bet. So, again, I don't know why those schools aren't participating in it, but for whatever reason, they're not. But I also, you being out in California, you're probably familiar with the fact that there are some schools out west that are kind of going all in on this. There are scholarships that are being put out for esports leagues and competitions. It's an emerging scene, and it's kind of cool to see it get some airtime on a college sports network. And now, keep in mind, there's not a whole lot to broadcast over the summer on a network like the Big Ten Network. You can only show reruns of what just happened in the last football season so many times before you kind of lose an audience. So it's original programming, it's original content, and it fills some airtime. And I'm curious to see how it's received.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. I mean, before he was cut, Chris Long of the Rams. He was huge. He actually financially backed an esports team as they were participating in the league, and does so. He has his own esports team that he funds and gets them sponsorship equipment and things of that nature through his ties with the NFL. And it's growing. It's definitely growing. It's actually, I've seen numerous NFL athletes invest in esports. Because there's a popularity. And you know what? It's funny because that's why we started this show, right?
Right.
We've always said that video games are the great equalizer. I will never know what it's like to be Malcolm Butler and intercept a game-winning Super Bowl pass. But I sure know how to beat Malcolm Butler's ass in a game of FIFA, probably. Maybe not. Maybe he's top ranked in the world, and I shouldn't be saying that. But Malcolm Butler, you've been challenged. So,
we'll put that out there. We'll make sure he sees that.
We'll make sure he sees this. So I do think, I think it's a sound investment. Video games are a wave of the future, and it's not something that's going anywhere. Video gaming has evolved from, it always has been kind of a $1 billion industry, but the money that games are taking in now and the money that are going into games, because it used to be, you look back in the days of, I don't know if you watched the documentary and the unearthing of the E.T. games on Netflix. I'm sure you did.
I have, yeah.
Okay, all right. So you remember how long it took to put together that piece of crap game, right? It was 3 weeks that they put this piece of crap together. Now 2-3 weeks is just ironing out an outline for what your game may even be.
Right.
Gamers are expecting hundreds, not tens of, they're expecting hundreds of hours worth of games when they buy games, and consoles are everywhere because they've essentially they've become your home entertainment system. They hold all your streaming stuff. You can play your Blu-rays, you can play your 3Ds, you can play your 4K players, if you have an Xbox One or a PS4 Pro. So, the Big Ten getting into this makes complete sense because video games are here to stay and competition is competition. However you want to call it, if you want to call it a sport, some people consider NASCAR a sport. I don't.
I don't either, but I recognize that I recognize that it's demanding.
Yes, I very much recognize that I could not sit inside one of those cars for as long as they do, nor do I have the physical body upper strength to maintain control of a beast like they drive.
Right.
So I recognize that, but I do not recognize it as a sport. I recognize it as a race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's where I've come. Yeah, I used to, for years, I used to, NASCAR stands for not a sport or whatever. It's like, that's, that was kind of naive. I mean, in a sense, but I mean, I agree that there is much more of a physical demand on something like auto racing than I ever used to give it credit for. So I'm willing to understand that it's an intense competition, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think there are a number of sports that would probably qualify under that category. So, I don't know if I'm quite there at the esports yet, but I think that it's, like you said, competition is competition. These are kids that are going head to head as a team.
There's serious money too. How many
serious money? Yeah.
Millions of dollar prizes.
You go onto Twitch every day and you see some big time streamers that are making money by competing and playing these games out there, whether they're in a competition or if they're just, kind of just raising money along the way.
PewDiePie had a damn South Park episode. PewDiePie had a South Park episode. Like,
how about that?
It is very real. If you're being made fun of by Matt Stone and Trey Parker, you've arrived.
Yes, that's when you know you've made it, right?
Yeah. But moving on from a game that we don't play to something that we both were debating about whether or not it was a day one buy, and then basically independently of one another went out that day and bought it anyway.
I've been waiting 2 weeks to talk about this with you. So let's just recap real quick. A couple weeks ago, Nintendo had their big Nintendo Switch announcement presentation, kind of going over a lot of the details. And at the time that we recorded, there was still some information coming out. As you said, with the price that it's going to be coming out at $300 plus money for extra controllers and plus a game, it's obviously going to be a little bit more pricey than a lot of people were anticipating. So the question we had a couple weeks ago was, is this going to be a day one purchase, or is this something that we wait a little bit down the line as maybe some more games that we might find enjoyable come out, or whatever the reason was. We were both pretty resigned and saying, we can hold off on this. Personally, I thought Breath of the Wild with The Legend of Zelda would be just fine on the Wii U for me for a while. But then, like you said, independently, we both decided, let's go place the pre-order. So what was it that, kind of changed your mind from the time that we ended the recording to this point in time right now?
Well, naturally, I had a conversation with the wife, because even though I enjoy Nintendo products, and I've told my wife she should come on this show one time so you two could talk about Zelda. But there's not a Zelda game that my wife has not conquered. And when I say conquer, I mean she does everything in every Zelda game. It's what takes her so long to beat them, is that she figures if she's going to go on a quest, then damn it, she's going on a quest. Mm-hmm. And once a year she'll load up the Super Nintendo one and she'll beat the hell out of it in a day. Just do everything and beat the hell out of it once a year.
Wow.
I mean, she doesn't even need the map anymore for the Super Nintendo one. It's up here. And I'm tapping on my head. For this.
I figured you were. I had the visual in my head. Yes.
You had the visual, but we had the discussion, and so what we did was the first thing we did is we looked up and we saw that there wasn't going to be any delay between the release date of Breath of the Wild for the Switch and the Wii U.
Right.
So my wife's initial inclination was, let's just pick up Breath of the Wild for Wii U. I said, okay, that's fine. But I said, here's the deal. You love Zelda games, and you're always playing Zelda games. So why don't we at least look at the differences of how this game is going to look on the Wii U versus the Switch? And so, fortunately, because, we have the ability to do so thanks to companies like Kotaku, IO9, and Games Radar, things like that, they have the side-by-side comparisons of the visual graphics, which we loaded up on our 4K TV just because we wanted to get the clearest possible picture of what we were working with. And once she saw the visuals of the Switch versus the Wii U, they were so vastly superior that she was able to talk herself into getting a Switch.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Wii U game looks great. The Switch version looks phenomenal. And when you put those side-by-side comparisons up, and I agree, I saw the same things. That was part of the thinking on my part of the end too. So, I figure, I want to experience this other game like never before. This is going to be the way to do it. And I also figure, I don't know what the availability is going to be like. I don't know how long this thing's going to be backed up, if it is. So, I'm going to jump on this now, and maybe I can find a good, deal somewhere along the line. Didn't quite do that, but I made sure that I got first in line here, so I can get my hands on
and as soon as we went
thing.
and put our deposit down, it seems like this news started coming out that companies were no longer accepting deposits or pre-orders on the Nintendo Switch. And that was really what it came down to with my wife, actually, was I said to her, look, if we are going to do this, if we're not, that's fine. But if we are going to do this, we need to make this decision now. And because you and I know Nintendo so well, and know, like yesterday, they allowed Amazon to put a sale price on the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. It was $59.99 for 20 freaking minutes.
Yep.
For 20 minutes. That was it. 20 minutes was all you had. If you were taking a crap and missed that, you missed your opportunity. Yep. Like, that's what Nintendo does, though. They intentionally limit supply to create demand, which is somewhat ingenious because it does work for them.
Yep.
That said, it's frustrating, but it ultimately came down to the fact that I knew if we didn't pre-order our Switch, I didn't know how long I would be waiting if I actually did want one when it came out. And that was that was part of the two-factor analysis that went into my day one purchase.
And, since we recorded this, I've got a chance to see some more footage from some of the other games that are going to be coming out. I will say, if you haven't checked out the footage for Snipper Clips, that game looks like it might be addictively fun in a very simplistic way. And it's actually going to be only like $20, I think, maybe $30. I forget exactly what the price point was on that one. But I think that there might be some potential to have some fun with the system right out of the gate, aside from playing a Zelda game. You got a Bomberman game that might be pretty fun too. So I'm curious. I'm giving it a chance. I still think one of those games, like 1-2 Switch, or I forget the name of the other one, that's basically ARMS, I think. One of those should have been packed in with the system. I still think Nintendo made a mistake there. But look, I've always been a Nintendo fan. I kind of had a feeling I might change my mind on this whole thing, and apparently I have. So we'll see what happens. We're getting closer. We're a little bit more than a month away from the release date. So we'll see where this goes. Well, obviously we'll reassess the Nintendo Switch a little bit closer to the launch, I would think, and we'll try and work in some things to kind of keep the Nintendo conversation going, either on podcast form or maybe even on Twitch. To just kind of spice up the conversation a little bit. But there is a little bit of late-breaking gaming news that you brought to my attention right before we hit record on this one. So I'm going to let you kind of introduce what we're going to be talking about or looking forward to next, possibly by the next time we're podcasting here.
Yeah, so Marvel sends out a tweet basically stating that it's coming. And the tweet it just says, introducing the Avengers project from Square Enix, Crystal Dynamics, and Eidos Montreal. Reassemble. I text my roommate, and he finally, because we actually had a conversation. We have been talking about this. So the game it's the Avengers project. We have no idea what it's going to be, but we know it's about the Avengers.
and right there alone, that's enough to get me interested.
Yeah. The little montage doesn't show any gameplay or anything. It looks like CGI renderings of there's Cap's shield, Iron Man's arm is trying to fire a pulsar ray, And there's this voiceover talking about how the world is always going to need heroes. The thing is, they just need to be reassembled, and that's how the video ends.
It almost, real quick, it almost kind of reminded me of, I think it was Age of Ultron, when he's having a little sequence and he's trying to flash forward. It kind of reminded me of that, so I'm wondering if it's taking a cue from that. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it might be taking a cue from that with Cap's shield broken on the ground. That's actually when Thor sees the vision of the gauntlets and of Thanos getting the Infinity Stones and the world basically falling to complete crap and everyone dying. I had been talking with my roommate about this a while back because Marvel had said once they reclaimed all of their properties and they started getting these things back, we began talking about what would make a great Marvel game, because the last real superhero game that came out was Deadpool, if you don't count the Lego Marvel games, which they're fantastic. But look, man, Lego Marvel only goes so far for me, I love the hell out of those games. I own and have beaten both of them, and I even have one for the 3DS because it's slightly different than the other two. But I'm tired of playing Lego Batman and Lego Spider-Man and Lego Carnage. I'd like to play the real characters, and we had said that if Squaresoft could get a hold of this game, or Square Enix, that would be the dream. But my roommate tweets me back. He's like, yeah, I remember when we called that. The good news is they're finally making it. The bad news is that Square Enix is involved, so we probably won't see it for 5 to 7 years.
And that is the big concern. Now, like you said, we only have a very small teaser. We absolutely know nothing else about this game just yet, other than the fact that it's about the Avengers. So
we don't even know who's in it.
No, we have no idea. We have no idea what's going on with this game. So I think we're both hoping that by the next time we hit the record button on a new podcast, maybe we'll have some more information about that. So I'm kind of hoping that that'll be the case and we can explore a little bit more. But I think, I guess the question I would have is, I'm wondering, and obviously, like I said, we have no idea yet. Is this going to be a full standalone game, or is this going to take, a cue from some trends that we've seen in games now where they release it by like episodes or something like that? So, honestly, I don't know. I don't know if that's something
I hope it's a full game. I truly do. I genuinely hope that it's a full game, a completed product, something like Deadpool, perhaps. I'm so beyond tired of episodic video games. Words cannot even begin to express. If I hear something's in an episode form, it's an automatic no-buy for me. I'm not going to continue to pay you to play the game. You can put out the entire copy. You can offer me DLC through a season pass that I will buy. I'll buy those depending on what's in them. But no, I'm not paying for season 1. I'm not paying for, this is not a TV show. It's a video game.
Exactly.
Give me the whole thing.
I agree, and I hope that that's where it's going to be too. And we don't know when this thing's going to be released either. I don't think there was any tease about that. So, honestly, like you said, if it's Square Enix, we just never know. So I would imagine, that this might be something that we get shown off a little bit more at E3 later this year. And keep in mind, we also have a Spider-Man game coming out to PS4, right? Is that this year?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so, we could be in store for some interesting Marvel video game goodness this year, but we'll see what happens. So we'll keep an eye out on it, obviously, and like I said, maybe by the next time we record, we'll be able to talk about it a little bit more. But I think this might be a good time to transition into our pop culture segment, because that's generally how we wrap up these episodes, go from the gaming, go into the movie, pop culture kind of stuff, and there was a couple things of note within the last week, and let's start right with Star Wars Episode VIII.
Wait, we do have, just before we begin, here's something that just came up from the Los Angeles Times. So, okay. A new video game set in Marvel's worlds of the Avengers is on its way. Marvel Entertainment and Square Enix announced Thursday that they have partnered for the Avengers project. They said the game will feature an original story set in a universe to be filled with fan-favorite characters, environments, and moments. Developed by Crystal Dynamics, Tomb Raider, and Eidos Montreal, Deus Ex, the Avengers project is the first game from Marvel Square Enix announced multi-year, multi-game partnership. The announcement does not reveal much about the game, and more details are not expected until 2018. So these pieces of crap released the trailer for something that we're not even going to hear about for another year.
Hey,
Marvel,
and we just talked about it on our podcast, so good for us.
I hate you, Marvel. I hate you. I'm taking the sleeve off my arm.
Can you do that?
No, I don't. I've always wondered what would happen if I decided I wanted to get a tattoo removal one day, because I don't know how you remove a full sleeve. But The Last Jedi. Painful,
yes. Back to Star Wars. Something that we can have a little bit more faith in, I would hope. Star Wars Episode VIII. The title has been revealed. It is Star Wars The Last Jedi. First impressions. Like it?
Well, my first impression is that there was a gentleman on Twitter who called the title of this the day it was released. The tweet was flying around, and it was from 399 days before. He just said, "I'm calling it now." It was right after he had seen
Force Awakens.
What do you call it? Yeah, Force Awakens, and he kind of surmised that with Rey and Luke being what appeared to be the last Jedi, that's why he thought it would be called The Last Jedi. That was his explanation for it. But you kind of win the internet when you call the title of a Star Wars film a year in advance. It's not easy to guess the title of a movie randomly.
It's also not easy to win the internet, because it's very difficult.
Yes,
it's very difficult to do that. Many have tried, few have succeeded. But kudos to that gentleman.
Hey, speaking of winning the internet, do we dedicate a segment at the end of this to Ted Cruz and Deadspin? Maybe throw that just at the end of pop culture. But the Episode VIII revealed Last Jedi. The title is cool. I mean, outside of that, I know nothing more about the movie other than what the producers and filmmakers at Disney have said with regard to Carrie Fisher, a.k.a. Princess Leia. They have steadfastly refused that they will use any CGI effects at all with her. They are going to honor her. She is going to die. That is going to be that. But they are not going to attempt to recreate Princess Leia out of holograms. Her death will somehow be worked into this, and it will be done so in a tasteful and honoring way. I am sure we've seen a lot of. We saw this with Fast and Furious 7 at the end, where they used footage from the first one at the very end. And, I'm excited for the new Star Wars, but I am a bit apprehensive about the script, because I know that in order to make these movies more accessible, they had to blend the old generation with the new. And a big part of that were Carrie and Mark. Sure. Just such a huge part of that. And we already saw that Leia had a more advanced role in this, even in the first one. And they just killed off Han, and now they have to kill off Leia in some ways. So I'm a bit apprehensive about this. I hate saying this. I truly did. But one of the thoughts I had when I heard Carrie Fisher died is I was like, obviously aside from the impact that she had on my life, everybody, the impact that they had on their lives, and what she was, not just to culture, but also to women's movements and being a free thinker and a woman with an ability to overcome her own personal demons. I I was so worried because the producers, they had her locked in for these films, and now you have to come up with a whole new story.
Well, I mean, we don't know that just yet. I mean, obviously the word has been out there that she has an influential role, not to diminish any part of her role before. I'm just saying they did have like you said, there was a pretty good focus on her character, supposedly in episode 8 and episode 9. But we don't know exactly. Well, obviously, we don't know what the script is, so we don't know if she's already done the bulk of the bigger parts of where her character is in this story, and maybe in episode 9 she was going to have a reduced role anyway. We don't know that. So, and obviously, I think
didn't they also? Wait a minute. Didn't they also already do production on? Hadn't she already filmed for episode 8?
I was going to say she finished filming for episode 8. So they can do whatever they needed to do with episode 8 as far as I know. I mean, unless they have to make any late changes or anything.
But I think they're still going to have to make some late changes.
They may. And obviously, like you said, we don't know what the script is, so we don't know exactly where the story is going. But, from a production standpoint, obviously they can probably get by with episode 8. The biggest concern is going to be what happens in episode 9. If she was going to have a huge role in episode 9, obviously it has to change because, like you said, they're not going to CGI her into this. And first of all, let me just say, I'm happy to hear that because we kind of talked about when we talked about Rogue One. It was nice a little bit, as far as I was concerned. It was okay to see the general in there in a CGI version, but I could have used a little less of him. So I think what they did with Princess Leia at the end of the movie, I guess we can talk about the spoilers now. It's safe enough to be able to talk about those spoilers at this point, but I thought that was perfect the way that they ended the movie for Rogue One. Now, episode 9 obviously is a huge different story because we don't know what's going on just yet. So I'll be curious, and I think like I said, from a production standpoint, they have time to figure this all out, and I'm gonna put my faith in the fact that all these people that are invested in building the story that Disney is employing to do this, I trust that they're going to handle this in an appropriate way that's, I don't know if it's going to satisfy everybody, but I think it'll be done as well as they can possibly do it, given the circumstances.
Yeah, that's what we have to hope for. That's really, honestly, what we have to hope for.
Well, let me get back to the title of this movie, Episode 8, The Last Jedi. I think the biggest question that is out there right now that people want to know the answer to is The Last Jedi in a singular form or is it in a plural form? Because we obviously know that Luke is around.
Well, Jedi is the plural form of Jedi.
Exactly. So
it's like moose and moose.
So the question is, are there other Jedi that are out there that we just don't know about, or is Rey going to be a Jedi? Is some other character maybe that we haven't even met yet? Are they going to be a Jedi? Is Kylo Ren going to turn and be a Jedi? There's so many questions that can be answered here, and I hope nobody spoils it for me because I like going into this movie with as little information as possible. I know it's difficult to do that for some, but I made a pretty good conscious effort to do that with Episode 7, as well as Rogue One. Hopefully I can get through the rest of the year and do the same with Episode 8.
Yeah, basically, I mean, I love Star Wars and have loved Star Wars, so regardless of what happens, the only thing that I hope is that they truly do take some of these. I can honestly say that when I walked away from Force Awakens, my curiosities had nothing to do with characters like Han, obviously I was curious because the movie ends, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it by this point, I don't feel bad. But right. The movie ends with Luke and Rey just kind of standing there with Rey extending what used to be Luke's former lightsaber and Luke looking very broodingly and making her wait impatiently like the dick that he is. So that's where the movie ends, and we assume that we will pick up with Rey probably, sometime in the future after that, having learned some Jedi skills or going through the paces with Luke. But my questions at the end of the movie were I wanted to know more about Finn. I wanted to know more about Poe Dameron. I wanted to know more about General Snoke. Who is General Snoke?
Who is he? Who is this man?
So all of my questions, at the least, did not center on Han, Luke, or Leia. Mm-hmm. And from a filmmaking perspective, if you're trying to get people to return, that's what you want. You want them waiting to find out what's going to happen to the new characters.
And I think that that's going to be, like I've said this before, I felt like Episode 7, they played it very similar to A New Hope, almost too similar to some people. But I think that it did a good enough job in creating a new energy and maybe bringing in a newer fan base by telling a familiar story with familiar characters, but giving it a little bit of an updated look and an approach. And I think now what they're going to do, what I hope that they do with Episode 8 is kind of, they've already handled the rebranding, the relaunching of the franchise. Now they can go and tell a unique story that hopefully is going to be unique. And I don't want to see a rehash of Empire Strikes Back the way that we just saw at The Force Awakens and A New Hope. So I hope that they kind of go and focus on those new characters and tell their stories a little bit more so we can get some more background information on all of that.
Yeah, I really honestly do hope so as well. I think it's going to be an interesting set of events. I'm very curious to see, like I said, but I want to see some follow-ups. I want to see some, what do you call it? I want to see some more Jedi battles. I want to see some more lightsabers. I want to see some more TIE fights. I want to see AT-ATs getting taken down in new and creative ways. This is what we live for with Star Wars. This is why people were so excited when Battlefront came out and then dejected when there was no frickin' story mode. It's like, thanks a lot, assholes, for creating such a vivid environment that I could play in and absolutely love, but giving me nothing to do.
Right.
But also in that, staying in the movie realm, yes, we have a brand new trailer coming out, or that has come out. I believe it is the final trailer for Logan, which is not set, apparently, in the original, even though it has characters from the original movies, it has nothing to do with any of them. And it's kind of crazy to me.
I think this is fascinating. First of all, it's the whole X-Men continuity, the timeline thing. You can break that down almost so many different ways that I'll be honest with you, I've kind of lost track. And I still have not seen the most recent X-Men movie, Apocalypse. So I don't know if I need to do that before I go see Logan or not. But as far as this,
you don't. It's not set in. And actually, right, Apocalypse wasn't as bad as people cracked it out to be. It wasn't great. Olivia Munn did absolutely nothing for me. I'd be happy to not see her return to superhero roles. She doesn't inspire me as an actress, in fact.
Well, I didn't see X-Men Apocalypse, but I did see Academy Award nominated Suicide Squad. So I guess we win some, you lose some. I don't know.
Yeah, I avoided Suicide Squad like nobody would believe.
You didn't miss too much. So back to Logan.
Back to Logan. The new trailer hits, and Chicky is a badass.
Yeah, explain this character to me, because I did. First of all, I did a video review of this trailer. It was the first time we've ever done one of these, or the first time I ever did one of these. Posted it on HyruleHuddle.com last week. So if you didn't check it out yet, go ahead and check it out to get my kind of initial reaction. But I did that video, and I knew we were going to be talking about Logan on our next podcast. So I need you to enlighten me a little bit more, because I'm interested in this movie a little bit more than I was after the first trailer. But I need you to give me some insight on what I'm looking at in this preview here.
Well, basically, the movie looks like it's not taking itself seriously. I mean, for crap's sake, Logan's reading an X-Men. He's making fun of the X-Men comics, saying, well, it happened, but not like that, which is very reminiscent of something. I'm trying to remember what it. Golly, man, it'll come to me later on today where it's a ploy like, yeah, that's how it happened, but not like that. Almost very Sherlock-esque, in a sense. But you have this young girl who appears to be a replacement from Logan, could very well be X-23 from the comics, which is what most people are thinking this girl is going to be, because X-23 in the comics only has 2 claws that protrude. The girl in our movie only has 2 claws that protrude. So it's basically that maybe this is setting the table for, old man. It looks like it's dealing off of old man Logan, sort of, from the comics and moving on. As it's going to bring an end to Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and Fox and FX and everybody seem to be moving forward with not just the Legion series, but the X-Men series, and then a reboot of the X-Men series within the actual cinematic universe to create that going, which they have to do in order to keep the rights to them. So they'll keep creating X-Men films.
Right.
So really, I honestly feel like every single one of the Wolverine movies has basically been a standalone. I mean, you can connect them, but I kind of don't feel like 2 was set in the world of 1. So I'm kind of interested in this movie. I don't hold out a lot of hope for it, just simply because at the end of the day, I have never been impressed by any pure Wolverine movie. Origins didn't do anything for me, didn't blow me away. The Wolverine I thought was just stupid. So I have trepidation with this movie, but a recognition that I will go watch most things Marvel outside of Fantastic Four movies.
I think that's a very fair way of saying it, and I would agree. I think some of the standalone the standalone Wolverine movies haven't been all that great, but I'm willing to give it one more chance. Especially this is going to be the final call for Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, or at least as, say, a featured character. Maybe he'll show up as a quick cameo and maybe a Deadpool 2 or something like that. I kind of hold out hope that'd be kind of cool. But I think if this is going to be if this is the last one for him, let's see him go out with a bang. I want to see Wolverine the way he was intended to be. The one last chance to do that, and I'll hope for the best. I'll probably see it. I don't know if I'm going to see it early on or anything like that. It may be one I end up waiting to see when I can watch it at home or something like that. I'm intrigued.
It's not on this, and I'm going to sandwich it in real quick because we've got other things to talk about. But I watched John Wick for the first time 2 nights ago, and I am legitimately excited for February 10th and the release of John Wick Chapter 2.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen John Wick.
I have not.
May I recommend that you do so? It is,
okay.
You can buy it on Amazon for $8.99 or rent it for $4. Kind of worth it just to buy it, I promise you. But basically what happens is the plot is very simple. Keanu Reeves is a former assassin who retired from the life to live with his wife, who drops dead of a disease. It seems to be cancer. I guess that's what they were hinting at. You never really find out what the disease was. It's kind of unimportant to the film until you get to the part where his wife sends him a gift because she knows she's going to die. she had this puppy trained for him and sent to him, named after something, her favorite flower, a daisy. And Keanu Reeves is out gassing up his 69 Mustang when he runs into a young punk from the Russian mafia who tries to buy his car from him. Keanu Reeves refuses to sell, so they show up to his house, beat the hell out of him, and then kill the puppy. And after that, John Wick is like, you know what? I've had enough. And I'm just going to say, Gun Fu is awesome. If you don't like Gun Fu, then I don't know what to tell you about action movies. But watching Keanu Reeves go to work in John Wick, the entire world of John Wick is so great that I don't want to spoil it for you. But let me just say that it is a very fun, thought-out, and creative universe in which they have placed an assassin like John Wick. He very much exists in modern society, but he also exists within this underworld that is very separate from modern society. And it's awesome to see this. You never really fall in love with the seedy underworld, right? Like that's not what you're supposed to do in a movie. But
right.
In this one, you're like, this underworld system is so awesome. Like, I want to be a part of it. How do I get a membership to the Continental? And I'll leave it at that. But I suggest February 10th is the release of John Wick Chapter 2. I highly suggest that if you can, if your wife doesn't mind violent movies, if you've seen something like Shoot 'Em Up with Clive Owen or any of the Expendables, I think John Wick is more like a John Woo type movie.
Okay.
And it follows that vein. It's so worth your time. It's very much an action oriented, assassin shoot 'em up flip. And yeah, I can't wait to watch it. But the last two trailers, the last two movies that we have to talk about today before we go is that Sony has a new animated Spider-Man movie coming out in 2018. And the central focus of the character is going to be Miles Morales, also known as Kid Arachnid, when he exists in Earth 616 alongside of Peter Parker. For those of you who don't know what Earth 616 is, the entire Marvel universe, multiverse as it were, consists of various different worlds and dimensions in which certain characters exist. And there's an ultimate universe in which the characters are much different than they are in just the regular universe. They come about their powers different ways. They have different powers. Different people play the roles. And so Earth 616 is the main continuity of Marvel. It's what you always think of when you think of Marvel. The original X-Men, the original Fantastic Four, the original Spider-Man as Peter Parker, so on and so forth. Gwen Stacy dying, the Green Goblin. That's all Earth 616. So Miles Morales, enter him. He takes over for Peter Parker. After Miles Morales actually becomes Spider-Man on his Earth because Peter Parker is killed. So Miles Morales takes over the mantle of Spider-Man in his world, and he's a mixture of, I believe, Puerto Rican and black. I do believe his mother speaks Spanish. I could be getting my countries wrong, but I know he is some Latino ethnicity. So I really, really, really do enjoy Miles Morales, and I can't wait to see this movie. I always enjoy Marvel animated movies. I don't know if you've seen them.
I have not, and it is something that I think there are a couple of them that might be on Netflix, so I might check them out at some point or something like that. But I'm curious, and I think one of the things I was wondering about when we first found out that Sony was kind of giving Spider-Man a fresh look and kind of working with Marvel to implement him into the cinematic universe, there were some people that were hoping that they would just scrap Peter Parker and go with Miles Morales in the cinematic universe. So obviously that wasn't the case. They went with Peter Parker, looks like that's going to be an okay move for them. But now we've seen the new Spider-Man live-action movie come out, and now we've got news that Miles Morales is going to be the feature of their animated universe. I'm wondering, is that a good move? You think that that's a good way to go? Have one Peter Parker in one universe and Miles Morales in this animated series?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I really enjoy Miles Morales, and they have a show on Disney XD that just finished up its run called Ultimate Spider-Man. Tremendous Spider-Man series. I would put it up there with the early 90s Spider-Man series, even though I think that one's the best of all time. But this new one, it's got a lot more of the humor that you expect out of Spider-Man, and it's got a breaking of the fourth wall, which some people don't like because that's Deadpool's thing. But Spider-Man's always kind of talked to himself. So
right.
It's not as though he's actually breaking the fourth wall in as much as he's talking to himself or speaking aloud or bringing people up to speed on where things are at. I enjoy Morales.
Real quick, the 90s superhero shows, that was a pretty good age between X-Men and Batman. You throw in Spider-Man.
They're all on Hulu, right?
Yes.
I have plowed through all 5 seasons of Spider-Man and finished it out, which was awesome. I am now on season 4 of X-Men. I have just worked my way through the Phoenix Saga. I am headed into the Dark Phoenix Saga. But yeah, I the only one that really sucked was the 90s Iron Man. I didn't really care
watch
for
that
it.
one.
No, I just Iron Man doesn't do anything for me. I don't like him.
I was a fan of the Batman series, and then eventually they moved that over to Superman. Didn't really get into.
Do you know the best part about that Batman series?
What?
I was going to ask you to take. Do you know trivially the best part about that Batman series?
No.
Would you like to take a stab? There's some trivia in here.
Well,
what that Batman series gave us?
Oh, Harley Quinn.
Yes. That is the origin of Harley Quinn, was from that Batman series, and she is today a modern day icon for women. She is considered to be the ultimate symbol of female empowerment, kind of taking the reins over Wonder Woman, because nowadays it's cool to be a badass rather than wearing a bra and some panties and wearing, the lasso of truth. Or, man, I know Wonder Woman's a symbol for a lot of different things, but I don't know. I've never really cared for Wonder Woman, but I hear she's the best part of the new Batman vs. Superman, so that could change. I may have to go out and check that.
Batman is the best part of the new Batman vs. Superman, but Wonder Woman, I'm pretty optimistic about. I think.
Wait, how can you say Batman is the best part of that? Ben Affleck got trashed for that role.
Well, I think the people that trashed him need to go back and look at it, and I think he was a really good Batman. So. But that's another topic. We can talk about that another time.
Yeah, but I think we need to have a show dedicated to should Ben Affleck play any more superheroes. But let's wrap things up with the new Power Rangers trailer.
Yeah.
Let me get your thoughts on that.
Speaking of 90s shows that are, I think that's a good transition. I think Power Rangers are coming back, and this is another video trailer review that I did on the site HyruleHuddle.com. Go check it out on the blog section. Let me know what you think. But when I first heard about the Power Rangers movie, I was I wasn't really excited about it. I admit I watched the Power Rangers when it was first on the air and TV. I haven't watched it in years since then. So I've missed a whole lot of Power Rangers. But they're going back to the basics. They're going back to the origin of the Power Rangers. So there's a lot of familiar stuff that, as someone who watched the Power Rangers back in the 90s, that's going to be familiar to me, I think. I think the casting is pretty decent. But this trailer in particular, I'm in. I think this is going to be a fun movie. And that's all I'm looking for. I'm not looking for anything that's real hard or serious or anything like that. If I'm going to see a Power Rangers movie, or if I have any interest in a Power Rangers movie, it's really just to go and have a good time. I thought this trailer did just about everything as well as it possibly could have for what it is. And honestly, if I take this trailer and compare that to the footage and trailers that we've seen for the Ninja Turtles movies the last few years, I think the Power Rangers is light years ahead of where the Ninja Turtles was. And I was a huge Ninja Turtles fan, so I was really disappointed by what happened with those movies. But I think, I think this has some potential here.
Yeah, I watched the Power Rangers original run with Tommy, Jason David Austin or whatever his name was, Austin David. I watched that entire original run, and the only concern that I have about the Power Rangers movies is that they have taken some real odd liberties with characters like Alpha 5 and Goldar. And they're entitled to this, but it's their party. They can cry if they want to. But again, falling back to that whole X-Men apocalypse thing, he looked like Lord Ivanus, and it kind of takes away from some of the experience when the characters you're seeing are massive deviations from that with which you grew up. I hate that a little. That doesn't mean I won't go see it. It just bugs me at a minor level. Like, why are we changing Alpha 5 to look completely different? If you're going back to reboot a series that people remember and you're using the cornerstone of that, why aren't you, like, Alpha 5, even during the 90s, look, he didn't look amazingly scientifically advanced, but I'm saying I think you could have upgraded that without changing him completely.
Maybe, but I'll be honest, I'm not going to get too caught up on Alpha 5. I think in the grand scheme of things, I'm more curious about the Power Rangers themselves. Bryan Cranston as Zordon, I think looks like a pretty good fit from what we've seen in the footage, at least as far as I'm concerned. Elizabeth Banks as Rita Repulsa, I think is obviously much different from the character that we saw on the old TV show. But I'm curious. I think she might be able to nail it, and I'm very curious to see, how Bryan Cranston is, how she is as Rita Repulsa. I think I got the name right? Rita Repulsa.
Yes.
Yeah,
Rita
right.
Repulsa.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I mean, she looks like a badass rolling down the street, just like making these monsters come out of the ground. Like I said, I'm in. I'm as in as I could possibly be with the Power Rangers. I'm not going overboard or over the top or anything for this. It's not like one of my most anticipated movies, but if there is something that I might go see and expect to just have a good time watching some decent action, I guess. I think the Power Rangers might be it. So, obviously that's going to come out later in March. Logan comes out on March 3rd. We got a busy day on March 3rd. If you're picking up a Nintendo Switch and then going to see Logan that night, that's a day right there.
Hey man, I had to watch The Magicians, the season premiere of The Magicians last night, as well as Suits after a back surgery, and I'm pleased to say that I got it done. So, I feel okay with it. I feel like I can go pick up the Switch from Best Buy and then bebop to Edwards on the way home and watch myself some Logan. I also have the advantage of a Kodi player, so I don't necessarily have to go to the theaters.
Ooh, there you go. You're going to have to explain that to me a little bit more. Give a full review of the Kodi player, maybe on a future episode.
Oh man, don't get me.
Sounds like you love it.
Dude, if you don't have one, Kevin, I would just recommend I'll send you the link to the one that I have. Let me just say that between the Kodi player and PlayStation View, I have cut cable and have not missed it at all.
All right, so you're
and
I
don't miss sporting events either. That's the thing.
Well, that's the big key. That's a big key.
I have eliminated my cable bill. I pay $50 a month for PlayStation View, which gives me about 100 channels, all I really need. ESPN family of networks is included in there. And then on Kodi, because you will probably get the local channels in your area because you're in a major market like Philly. Some areas provide local channels, and it costs about $10 more, but you get your local channels that you can watch, which is cool. I don't live in that area, so I don't get that for PlayStation View, but I happen to have an antenna set up, an HD antenna, so I can stream digital programming, and like the Super Bowl, I will be able to see it if I want to.
If you want to.
Yeah, but the Kodi player essentially is a repository for every TV show and every movie that has ever been released on the internet. And what people usually think about watching movies on the internet as crap quality, we're so far beyond that point. The streams that get uploaded to the internet nowadays are either 1080p or 4K. And, that's the stream you get. So if you miss you can just ditch your DVR, the one that they make you pay $10 for, and the episode's up there that night. Like, if you missed Suits on the East Coast, like an hour later, it's up, you know? So, it's a great device. It's a great device. But we can leave it there. We can talk about it.
Yeah, let's leave it there. We have gone on for a very long time. And so if you've reached the end of this episode, I congratulate you on reaching this far into the podcast as we get ready to wrap this up. We promise, or at least maybe I shouldn't promise on both of our behalves here, Josh, but I'm going to guess that we're going to make an effort to try and not make our listeners, as many of them as there may be, wait 2 more weeks to get another episode. We'll try to cram one in before that time expires next time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a back surgery that delayed me this week, and I do apologize for that, folks. So we will not go again another 2 weeks. But yeah, hopefully within the next week or so, we're going to get some information on these things. And I'm giving you a homework assignment, Kevin, to watch John Wick. Wick. That is your homework assignment.
That is my homework assignment. Okay, I will do that, and I will report back with my my recap and my thoughts the next time we reconvene. So before we say goodbye, let me just remind everybody that's listening that you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow me at Kevin on CFB. You can follow Josh over at Fight on Twist. Of course, you can follow Hyrule Huddle on Twitter at Hyrule Huddle. You can also like our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Hyrule Huddle. And pay attention to the Twitch channel, folks. I keep teasing this, but I really do mean it's going to start kicking out some live streams fairly soon. That's twitch.tv/The Hyrule Huddle. And, of course, the website, again, is hyrulehuddle.com. Make sure you check it out for some blog posts. That's where you can get all the episodes of our podcast, any videos, any blog commentaries that Josh and I have. That's where you're going to want to go to get out everything. So, Josh, did I miss anything? Is there anything I missed?
No, I don't think so. I think other than that, it's been a relaxing day. We'll also be one step closer to the Super Bowl, so we can drain that into the ground.
Yeah, we'll do a little bit of a Super Bowl preview next week for sure, and then we'll find some other topics of interest to kind of throw in the mix as well.
You know, I think by the next time we're around, a lot more NFL stabs will have been filled out too, and we can start talking about some of those things as well, what we like, what we don't like. So,
and you know what? Let me throw out one more tease. We might have a guest coming on fairly soon. So why don't we just leave it at that, and we'll provide more details once we get that all worked out.
For sure. So, for Kevin, I am Josh. And we will catch you next time here on the Hyrule Huddle.